I'm Naomi Hopple, and this is Vibrant Sunshine Behind the Scenes. Join me as I grow my organic cold-pressed juicery to the next level. As a lover of podcasts, I started this show because I noticed a significant gap in the voices of small business owners like me. So oftentimes, brick and mortar business owners are invisible. We exist behind the scenes, and our struggles and triumphs are uncelebrated and unseen. My hope is that this show will inspire other entrepreneurs as I document and share my own journey. Thanks for being here. While I was in Mexico with my family recently, we met a wonderful couple from Brooklyn, Victoria and Lee, and their son, who was fast friends with our 2-year-old Oren. And as we got to know them, I told them a little bit about my juice company, and Vic asked me, wait a minute, you started your juice company in 2013? And she was sort of astonished that a cold-pressed organic juicery could be popular in Pittsburgh in that time. In fact, in 2013, there weren't a lot of cold-pressed juiceries outside of New York or California. And over the past 10 years, they have cropped up and become more popular and franchised and whatnot. And she had a lot of questions. How did you figure it out? How did you come up with your recipes? Where did you learn? We were blessed with a wonderful mentor who was willing to guide us in the right direction from the start. My brother Zeb actually has a yoga mentor named Mary, and Mary had a yoga studio in San Francisco in the 90s where she would make juice every morning. Really, in the middle of the night, they would start juicing, and they would serve juice to their yoga classes that started at 6 a.m., and they would sell out. So it was, from the start, along with the yoga studio, performance nutrition. It was trying to get as many nutrients into your diet as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. Juice has a way of doing that. The point with juice, with cold pressed juice, is you're removing the fiber from the fruits and the vegetables. So the nutrients in that way become much more easily digestible, consumable, and effective in your body. They assimilate with your bloodstream and immediately impact you. So what Mary provided to us were basic instructions and simple recipes. And honestly, that is the secret of my business. There isn't a secret. There isn't a secret, in my opinion, to nutrition or wellness. It really is simplicity. Simplicity is key. Once you start to complicate things, add ingredients that are formulated in laboratories or processed foods, when your body can't actually break down the ingredients that are presented to it, that's when things start to go haywire. So juice is the most simple form of food you can imagine. It is fruits and vegetables grown under the sun, broken down into a juice form that is consumable, removing the fiber so that your body can simply absorb the nutrients. I'm not saying fiber is bad. Fiber is great. Fiber has its purpose, but if you eat a carrot, your body will spend so much energy breaking down the carrot that it won't be able to absorb the majority of the nutrients. The nutrients will pass through your system without being absorbed. So thus is the beauty of juice. With the simple and basic recipes that were provided to us by Mary, we then were able to branch off of that and come up with some really amazing recipes focusing on simplicity and low sugar content. And when I say sugar, I mean natural sugar. Of course, there's no added sugars in any of our juices. I'm talking about fruit sugars, apple, pineapple. We actually use Granny Smith apple juice in all of our recipes as opposed to any other type of apple juice, predominantly because of their low sugar content. Something that I don't really talk about much is I do consider myself a foodie, and I am a creator of recipes, and what I have done with our juice recipes, starting with very simple ingredients, is ensure that every ingredient is highlighted in our recipes. So, for example, we only have one juice that has 7 ingredients in it. That is the most ingredients in any juice that's on our menu. And in that juice, you can actually taste the flavor of every ingredient. In so many juices and so many juiceries, there's a way of trying to hide the flavor of things, sort of the way they talk about hiding flavors, like hiding vegetables in smoothies for kids and things like that. But we have an opposite approach. So this juice with 7 flavors, and if anyone can guess what this juice is, or if anyone listening to this podcast knows what this juice is, you can just leave me a message after this episode, and I'll send you a $15 gift card that you can use in-store or online at the Pittsburgh Juice Company. That's for the first person to reply with the name of the juice. But this particular juice highlights some intense vegetables such as kale and celery, some things that aren't necessarily favorable tastes, and we make sure that they have their place and create more of a complexity and less of just a cover-up. Whereas a lot of juiceries will make their juice sweet, make it predominantly pineapple or apple, just to try to hide those flavors. So with this opposite approach, our juices were developed basically using the tools available to us and the experience that I had as a bartender. So in college in New Orleans, I had a part-time job at a bar. It was a fancy cocktail lounge, and it was so much fun. I learned to mix and pour and create flavor profiles. And I have always joked around standing behind the juice counter that it is a very similar job. And I do enjoy the social aspects of chatting with the customers from behind the bar and serving them up shots of wellness in this case. The biggest difference being that you are serving them health instead of making them drunk. Shots of ginger instead of shots of tequila. But the social aspect and the community is still there. So our recipes were created using the tools available to us, and that was basically what I could find at Restaurant Depot down the street. And aside from that, it just took, some passion and some experimentation, and we developed a logo, the Pittsburgh Juice Company logo, as an apothecary vibe, really lending a nod to the wellness factor without being too obnoxious about it. And the classic look has a place in Pittsburgh, in a city full of history where every building used to be something and everyone has a story about old neighborhoods. So that was my story for Vic. We opened in a location where the neighborhood was still in a process of gentrification. Our end of the neighborhood was pretty empty, pretty run down and depleted with a lot of empty storefronts. And over the course of 10 years, I like to think we had a positive impact on the neighborhood. I know I have been told by landlords and people selling homes that a lot of people are excited to move to a place that's so close to the juice company just to have it in the neighborhood. It is a great amenity in that way and a great resource for the community. There's a lot of different things you could say about gentrification, but that's not the focus of this podcast. But integral to the discussion on gentrification is the discussion on price point. The other day, someone came into the juice company who hadn't been there since 2014 and was a little bit shocked that the prices have literally doubled since then. But given the circumstances, particularly over the course of the past several years, there is no choice other than watering down the product to raise the prices. We believe in the integrity of the ingredients. We believe in organic produce. and we don't make exceptions. If there was one thing I could have changed over the course of the last 10 years, it would be recognizing the value of the work earlier on, and particularly the value of my own work. Because in the early days when I was there, standing behind the juice counter for 12 to 13 hours a day, working in the kitchen, making the juice myself, I was more concerned about the value I was providing to my customers than for the value that I was providing to myself. And that was an error that over time I have confronted over and over again as we've grown into a larger business. Because every time we make a step where I have to hire someone to do the work that I do myself, I find that underpaying myself kicks me in the butt, because I can underpay myself all day for the work that I do, but as soon as you start to employ other people, you need to make sure that you're taking care of them. So this is a consideration that I do my best to emphasize every time I speak with a new business owner. Even if you don't pay yourself for every hour you work, make sure that that pivotal stuff is built into the price point from day one. It will save you so much time and so many headaches in the long run. This week in Aspinwall, we've been really honing in on some of the interior details of the space, specifically natural light. The front of our building has an abundance of natural light through the garage doors and storefront glass, but as you get further back into the workspaces, there is less light. So we've become aware of these tiny skylights called sun tunnels that funnel from the roof and provide an enormous amount of light during the daylight hours. Additionally, we met with our coffee roaster for the first time this week and had a cupping. And what that means is we basically tasted a lot of different coffees from different origins and learned how that affects the flavor of the coffee and why. It was super interesting, and I'm looking forward to inviting our roaster onto the podcast for a future episode. For our coffee menu, we are going to have a full Italian espresso menu, but what we're really excited about is the adaptogenic lattes, including everything from mushrooms to ashwagandha, beetroot, golden milk, and our default milk will actually be one of our house nut milks. And that's all I have to say about that. So I'll talk to you all next week. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to give us a follow at Vibrant Sunshine Behind the Scenes. You can find photos posted on my Instagram, that's Green Juice and Yoga, Naomi Hoppel, and also on the Vibrant Sunshine Cafe Instagram. Enter today's contest by leaving a voicemail message after this episode.